Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Anthony.
Today, let's cover contingent fee probate. So, what do you do if you need a probate lawyer, but you don't have any money? Or at least you don't have any money right now, because most probate cases deal with sort of getting your inheritance, right? You should have money coming in. But how do you sort of bridge that gap? So today we'll talk about one possible solution called contingent fee probate.
Great. So today we'll discuss, what are contingent fees, some limitations, will contests, kinship, and uncertain assets.
Cool. Let's just dive right in with what are contingent fees. So they're basically success-based fees, and I think in the UK they call them a no-win, no-fee arrangement. I like how succinctly they put it there. So it's usually a percentage of what your lawyer gets for you, typically around 1/3 of what your lawyer is able to get for you. But it can be more or less based on the complexity of the situation. And remember, I know a third sounds like a lot, but if for whatever reason your lawyer is unable to recover your inheritance for you, what do you pay, Janice?
Nothing. No win, no fee, right?
Exactly. So it's kind of like your lawyer is taking a bet on you and your case, and you're sort of sharing in the upside with the lawyer. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's definitely a risk that the attorney's willing to take, but it could play out either way.
If you want a real concise explanation of it, you should watch the movie Erin Brockovich.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch that?
I did. A long time ago.
But yeah, Julia Roberts' character does a real clear explanation. Like, boy, I understand that percentage sounds big. What does this bozo lawyer deserve to get? 1/3 of my fee? Well, taking all the risk, putting all the money in, putting all the work in for possibly years, and if for whatever reason the case isn't there or the facts aren't there and the inheritance isn't there, lawyer gets bupkis, and you don't owe him a dime.
Yep.
Okay. So next, what are some limitations of these contingent fee arrangements? Well, number one, they only, based on ethical and legal limitations, we can only accept that type of fee arrangement, us lawyers, for certain types of cases, which we'll discuss next. And another limitation is that most of the time, it's really, really rare to get a pure contingent fee, meaning it's really rare for a lawyer to say, okay, don't pay me anything, and I will work for 3 years on your case, and if we win at the end, I'll take 1/3.
Right.
That's the sort of theoretical, pure version of a contingent fee, but most smart lawyers, don't want to work that way. And here's why. So what they want is they want some sort of hybrid. They want some skin in the game from the client, from you. And the reason for that is because I need you to be an active participant in the case for us to have the best possible chance of winning or recovering your inheritance, whether it's helping me get birth certificates, death certificates, family information, just being timely and responding to things. And just, most lawyers, experienced lawyers know that unless you've put some money in, unless you've felt some pain to start this case, you're very slow to respond.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. I'm not, pointing fingers, but, if you've had to scrape together $500, $1,000, whatever's appropriate for the situation, and you've had to feel a little pain to get this case moving, you're more likely to be an active participant. Have you seen that in your experience, Janice?
I have, and it kind of turns it into more of a team effort than you've got to earn your 1/3, so I'm going to sit back and watch. But you're right, it turns into a little bit of a team.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd because I have seen pure contingent fee arrangements, and it's just been odd to watch the client just kind of, like you said, sit back and watch and not really help the case.
Right, because why would they? They're just kind of waiting. But
right.
I personally haven't seen it happen a whole lot. But how about you see it on TV all the time? What are the commercials? That we will take nothing if you get nothing.
But yeah, once the client has also put in a couple of hundred, even a couple of $1,000, depending on the situation, I don't know, something about the psychology changes and they become a much more active part of the team.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Okay, so let's dive into a couple of situations, a couple of the types of cases that are eligible for contingent fees in probate. This is not an exclusive list, but just a couple of the more common examples. The first are will contests. Okay, so let's say your uncle passed away and you were supposed to inherit, if as based on the fact that you're one of the closest living family members, but you got disinherited. Not a great feeling, I would imagine. Has not happened to me yet. So you want to challenge the will and say, hey, there's no way my Uncle Bob would have cut me out completely. Like, that's just not what our relationship was. Something's fishy here. So you want to challenge the will, or there's all sorts of situations where you want to get that will thrown out. This type of situation where you want to challenge the will is actually one of the prototypes for contingent fee probate, because if you get the will thrown out, or if you're able to negotiate a settlement, your lawyer has successfully obtained an inheritance for you. But if he's not successful, or if the will is rock solid and you get nothing, then what does your lawyer get?
Nothing.
Yeah, there you go. So it's really it's well set up for a contingent fee. The only thing is, you got to understand that litigation of any kind, whether it's a car crash or a drug that went bad, from pharma company, or a will contest, any litigation is super unpredictable, super expensive, and super long. Like
very
years.
long, very time consuming, very long.
So you're looking at a more likely a higher percentage, or your lawyer wanting more participation, or more of a hybrid with you, just because it's such a big ordeal. Yeah.
Yes. Just to prepare a loan for one hearing is incredible.
Yeah. And there's witnesses, or tracking down the witnesses to the will, tracking down the doctors who might be able to opine on your uncle's, mental state. There's just a lot of work involved. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Another example of a type of probate case where contingent fee might be appropriate is where you're looking to prove kinship. What does that mean? Are you actually an heir? That can mean a couple of examples would be if you are a non-marital child, meaning if you were born out of wedlock and your father passed away. The way the law is set up, you need to prove that you are actually his child. And in some counties, just having your dad's name on your birth certificate is not enough. You need to do a bit more, because you could put Elvis Presley on a birth certificate and prove that, right? that he was your father.
Okay.
There's no, if anyone who's a parent knows that they don't do a DNA test or anything at the hospittal. They just
That's
said, okay.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. You could have really put anyone.
So proving that you are in fact a child of, your deceased father can be a process. And if you don't have the funds to pay an attorney to do it, you might consider doing it on a contingent basis. We've had even messier cases. I call them my Jerry Springer cases.
Oh, yes.
Where somebody has had multiple spouses. I don't know why people do this, but a lot of people do. Where they marry, they never divorce, separate, or do anything, to end the prior marriage, and they just keep on marrying, where they have 3, 4, 5 spouses, and you have to figure out through, at least legally. I'm not talking emotionally. I'm not talking about who his heart really was with. We need to figure out which marriage is the last, standing marriage, because everything after that is a bigamous and therefore illegal and invalid marriage. So, I'm giving you guys a window into the kind of fun, dramatic stuff we deal with.
I was going to say, and it isn't like you just made up the scenario. This happened.
Oh yeah. More than once.
Right. Not just once. Yeah.
So if you're one of the spouses in that chain and you believe that your marriage is the valid one, there is a process. There is a legal, it's not necessarily a lawsuit, but there's a process to documenting and proving that yours is the valid marriage and everything else is bigamous, or, we can knock them out for other reasons. Another example of proving kinship, meaning proving that you're a related, heir, is if you're a distant relative. So if somebody passed away with only nieces and nephews, or grandnieces and nephews, or cousins as their heirs, there is a process for proving the family tree. I like to call it daisy chaining together birth and death certificates to sort of connect you all the way up your parents, up your grandparents, and back down to the decedent, if that makes sense. I think anyone who's done this, or anyone who knows genealogy, that'll make sense. Everyone else is probably thinking, what is he talking about? But there's a process for documenting, are you actually a grandnephew of the person who passed away? And then in addition to that, you need to close off all other lines, meaning, did Uncle Bob only have 10 nephews so that I get a 1/10 share? Or is it possible he had 20, because we don't know? So there's a process for really cutting it off and figuring out what exactly your proportion is. And if you don't have the funds to pay a lawyer to do all that, that might be a situation where a contingent fee makes sense. Also, just be aware that for many of these kinship type situations, you may also have to hire a professional genealogist to satisfy the court, as part of the process. Those guys don't work on contingency fees, so that's something that somebody will have to pay out of pocket, probably you.
Yeah.
But if it's that's something you need to figure out. Yeah. All right. Lastly, Janice, let's talk about uncertain assets. All right.
Yes.
So this is kind of a murky area, but I thought it was worth throwing in because there are situations where you think you need to probate, let's say, your aunt's estate because you think your aunt, owned a share in a business, but you don't have any documentation and nobody will talk to you until you've set up an estate and you have proof that you represent your aunt's interests. But you don't want to pay a lawyer to set up an estate and do all that because you don't even know if there's anything there.
Right.
So that's an example where you might want to just work with an attorney on a contingent basis. In many of those cases, that's kind of a tough situation because a lawyer is not really going to want to take that case unless there's some pretty good proof that asset exists.
More than a hunch.
Right. And if there's enough proof that asset exists, and is part of your aunt's estate, then you might want to just find another way to finance, to pay for your lawyer, whether it be credit cards or just, GoFundMe or borrowing from family and friends. But if that's just not available for you, or if you just prefer, your risk profile is you prefer to do a contingent fee, that works, that's allowable. And, it's an option. Having different financing options or different payment options, the more the better in all walks of life. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think it's a bad thing to ask your attorney when you sit down to talk about this, what the different options are, right?
Yeah. I think that's it. So we covered what a contingency fee is, some of the limitations on that type of payment plan. And we covered 3 examples of when it might work, whether it's a will contest, proving that you're actually related, called kinship, or if the estate assets are uncertain. And I think that's all we have for today, Janice.
Very good. And if you want to learn more, dig in a little deeper, check out Anthony's book, available on Amazon, How Probate Works. Give you a little more insight to some of this.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Janet. We'll talk again next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.